Welcome back to Trekyards Mission Briefing, everyone. This is Commander Cockings.
And Captain Foley.
And as you know, this is the relaxed discussion show, but we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing very up-to-date and possibly less relaxed, since this is, get ready for it, the first new canon ship we've done. First brand new, I think it's fair to say. Like, hot off the press is sort of new.
Yeah, absolutely. This was released on Saturday, the 30th of January, so a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a chance to look at it and mull it over and kind of see some other reactions online, and we thought we would review it today for you guys. And that is, of course, the USS Franklin from the upcoming Star Trek Beyond movie.
So this is obviously JJ canon, but still, fun to see something new. So this is the first picture, which is a picture that was shared online. Okay, so first impressions. What was your first impression, Stuart?
My first impression was I was very impressed. I actually like this design. It kind of harkens back to the original TOS look, especially with those warp engines or the warp nacelles. But as soon as that kind of entered my mind, a few other things did too. But initially, I was very impressed and I was very happy that this was kind of being brought back to TOS kind of standards.
Yeah, I was pleased. I don't think I was impressed, but I was pleased. Like, out of every direction.
Probably a better word was pleased, yes.
Yeah, I think we're always a bit cautious with how they're going to go. Now, while we like roughly the JJ ones from the first two films, in terms of side ships, we prefer the Axonal versions where they're more TOSified. And I think this is certainly... It feels more respectful. It does. Like, it's got all the elements. Although, as soon as I really gotten onto the fact that the bridge is the window is so small, then it's sort of lowered my opinion a bit. But I think, all things considered, I'm happy with the design. Hell of a summation, 2 minutes in. But just to give you guys a sense of where we are. Yeah, I was pretty pleased with my first impression anyway.
Yeah, and one of the things about this is I actually have spoken to somebody that's got a kind of an inside feel on the industry and what the call out for the ship was. And a lot of people have said that this is very similar to the FASA Lochnar class. And it is. We're going to look at the Lochnar in just a second to show you guys. But they initially wanted to stay with either a FASA design. They looked at some older designs, both canon and non-canon, and they had a few choices. And they tried to keep that and to impress the fans because they have been listening. And that's something that I really appreciate. But that being said, yes, that is a window.
But that is the style. And we know the Kelvin had it, so we know it's all the way from that time. So evolutionary-wise, they'd have to do that.
But if that's a window, that means this ship has what, 4 decks?
I would be stretching. I'd say 2, and if there's a big bottom bit, maybe the third for half of it. I mean, the rim is 1 deck. My big question for the scale is, where's the warp core? Because we see it in NX-01, it's the only lengthwise warp core, horizontal warp core, and it's the size of a very large room, which would be hard-pressed to fit in there. And every single warp core after the fact, in our universe, Prime Universe, is always vertical. Now, we know the J.J. Abrams one is also pretty big. I guess it's for a Constitution, but I don't know where they'd fit it. And in my head, I see it as being, it could be in the side of the saucer, which is a stupid design, but then you've lost most of the... I don't know. It's a weird one.
Well, some people have even speculated this is separated from like a secondary hull, which could have attached at the back. As you can see, kind of like a step there. They speculate that something was actually attached to that, which is a possibility. I don't find it very likely. But another thing that I got to point out real quick that I saw online is that people have been comparing this to a Romulan TOS bird of prey. I mean, at first look, if you don't know your ships very well, I get it.
Why on Trekyards then?
A lot of the Romulan bird of preys from TOS that we see do have the blue Bizarre collectors. It's got the orange striping there, like the orange accents that the Romulans do. So I kind of get that.
Well, I think it's a bit of a stretch, though. I mean, I don't think they're trying to replicate a Romulan design, which by all accounts won't necessarily exist, because I don't know. They might have sent a signal with the Narada and la. I don't know.
I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people have said that. At first glance, it does look Romulan, and I get that. But at the same time, once you see the Lochnar, you're going to see exactly what we're talking about. Which maybe we should move to the Lochnar.
Before we do, though, just on the scale thing, I am happy with those engines because they are almost correctly proportioned. They are they are the right amount of, yeah, I buy that.
Yeah.
Just meant in the general scale, I'm actually happy with the scale.
Yes.
Although then that said, they are going to be very small nacelles. I'm very interested to see what the role of this ship is, because it can't be anything more than a scout ship or some sort of short-range vessel, really. Because, I mean, what? The crew of maybe 20, 15 to have any sort of other facilities? But I'm sure we can go back to this a little bit later. And yeah, so...
Yeah. Another thing I got to point out with this picture real quick, too, is the texturing on the hull. It's kind of strange to me.
It's interesting, yeah.
It's not the regular smooth Starfleet aesthetic that we're used to, even with the JJ prize.
Yeah, it's not the Kelvin. Well, because this is obviously... I've read this meant to be before Enterprise. Yeah, so it's post-Kelvin, pre-Enterprise. Doesn't fit into either.
Yeah, it's almost like it's incorporated in alien technology or something. And
or armor. Possibly some sort of second, hull armor.
And you got to keep in mind, too, this is a concept, so the final CG versions of this might be a little different.
But it does look like a set CG concept. So this is a fully finished concept, if that makes sense. They don't tend to do it unless it's like one of the last possible steps. I mean, there is some nice texturing. The only thing missing is interiors.
But the only thing is, with the inside source that I have, there's no registration number on this because of the texturing. They couldn't get it to look right. But but according to the source, the final CG version does have the registry number, and it's incorporated. So I don't know how early this concept design is.
It's probably just the one before.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. All right, so let's quickly move on to the next picture. And this is, of course, the our class from FASA. And when you look at this, you can definitely see the similarities. And it's good that they actually looked at FASA ships and other fan design.
Well, it's ideal.
Exactly. They did listen to the fans that who bitched and moaned about how the ships looked, and they did take that into consideration with coming up with new ships, from what I've understood from my inside source. But take that for what it is. I mean, this is just one. It's obvious that they use this kind of ship as a design basis. So
well, it's one of those strange things because there is dozens of ships in FASA and Starfleet battles which are of the era, because we've got to consider they can't go so far beyond. They can't go to a D look or Intrepid look because fans are very much what
you said beyond Star Trek Beyond. Sorry, go ahead.
They can't do that, so they have to stick with TOS look, and obviously there is so much of that secondary material. Now, while most of it is kind of crazy, I don't think fans would like the mainstream fans would like, because it'd be just like, that's just weird. I think that's fair to say.
It's funny, too, that you mentioned the Defiant there, because the original premise for this ship was to be very Defiant-like, but it didn't look right. It didn't fit the universe. And so that's why they went with something that looks TOS.
Although if that was originally a concept, then that tells you something about the style of ship. Well, the size as well. But if they wanted a battleship, I mean, you wouldn't pick a Defiant unless you wanted a combat vessel. So maybe this is a strike vessel. Maybe the bottom half has got a torpedo pod, because it is missing one, and it goes in, fires torpedoes. I mean, it's very small for that, but then it is the Defiant. So is the Defiant. I mean, it's again, the window really puts you, but we're on the wrong picture to talk about this, but I don't know, size-wise.
Well, we can go back to the other picture and pull it up on screen, right?
Well, it's a later on picture. We'll just table that for a minute. But yeah, so FASA designs. I mean, there's so many interesting designs. I'm very glad they went to them, because there are so many sort of. How much can you really do with a TOS Connie saucer and TOS Connie nacelles for the old FASA? Apparently quite a lot, but a lot of it would be too radical. So it's good they looked at what they could do, and I think this is a very sane, very normal, very makes sense design. Although the scaling feels better on this one because of the.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And this is a frigate, so I don't know if they were going for a frigate design or whatever, but the original idea was Defiant-like, but it didn't look right because it didn't have the warp engines and things that tied it into the Star Trek universe, the Starfleet universe of that era.
Yeah.
So they actually went and looked elsewhere, which I really, really, really appreciate. Thank you guys for actually listening to us.
And this is a decent enough design. I've seen it in Gods and Men and fan productions like that, so it's always an interesting one. And while the balance is slightly off, it's not a lot off, so it does work. But the next picture is something you hinted at earlier, is a close-up on the front of the engine, which we highlight as blue. What do you see?
A lot of people complain about the blue Bizarre collectors. We're going to get into that in a minute, but they're not unprecedented in Star Trek Prime Universe.
Okay.
I'm just saying that right now. We'll talk about that a little bit on the next picture, but I actually like the look of the blue with this gray hull. With the Enterprise, it's too the white and the blue. I don't.
It's too clinical to Yeah.
Exactly. I don't like it as much as this. I mean, I think the blue suits this a lot better. A red on the JJ Prize would look better, but these nacelles look very TOS style. Even that dark ring around it. This, I would have loved to see this on the Enterprise.
Yeah, it would have been a much more normal progression. You know, it feels like a more armored NX-01, honestly. Although I'm absolutely fine with blue, because in the universe we see Enterprise and all the other canonical Abrams verse use blue, so of course I'm going to use blue. Like, that isn't an issue to me, because at this point you can't say it's an evolution from the Prime timeline because they got changed. So it's blue, that's what they do. So I'm fine with that straight off the bat. Although I'm interested to see how the USS Franklin, great, and then next to it is a TNG looking
I noticed that too,
badge. Because we know what the other pennons look like, and that's not the era-appropriate pennon.
Well, that being said, the Delta shouldn't be on all Starfleet vessels and all Starfleet ships either at this point.
Yes, and I suppose we haven't really seen other ships and other crews in the JJ verse per se.
Well, the Kelvin even had the Delta, which is bullshit, because it was originally the Enterprise's insignia.
But that's one of those weird sort of yes no. It was a bit confused in TOS time. That they didn't know what they wanted to do until they sort of But essentially they chose this exact one. Maybe the grandson of the guy who designed it. Oh no, I guess he could just be very old in TNG. Maybe he just had a brain here. He had the genius, the apple, the com badge hit him on the head 50 years earlier in this version, or 100 years earlier.
That being said, it is reversed. It's not the correct way. It should be mirrored. But anyway, I gotta jump in real quick and disagree with you for a second. They did know what they were doing in TOS. They had the regular Starfleet kind of arrowhead.
I know they did.
On all the ships. Every ship had its own insignia, and then of course during the motion picture. I know
it did, but some Commodores and some Admirals and some ship people all had the TOS one because they just reused the costumes. Like, there are goofs where they use the wrong one, and therefore the precedent is they tried, but when they failed, they failed.
Another thing I'm noticing on here is on the top there, it looks like two possibly phaser turrets, maybe ball turrets.
Which is something I hadn't noticed the lack of on the first picture, but yeah, that's interesting. Which would sort of explain why there's a bit more armor there. To give that, but that's could be. Yeah, and I kind of like this. It's just a bland blue. I mean, we haven't seen it in motion, but there's clearly no internal big rotate. Well, there sort of is.
It looks like there might be fan blades there that rotate, which would be nice, like that.
But it's a more medium. It's not this big, massive, see-through JJ. Yeah. And it's not the Enterprise one. It's something more in between. Again, they were so close, they just had to take it down a notch. I think they've done that for this.
So the next picture I just want to talk about real quick is that these are the early prototype and experimental warp nacelles in the prime time universe. The PB-32D and the PB-30A, used on civilian craft, even in Kirk's era, but also used on experimental and early TOS ships, including some Daedalus class ships and whatnot. So the blue Bizarre Collector is not unheard of in the primetime universe, and I don't mind that, especially considering the Franklin is supposed to be an earlier ship.
Now, is this from the Franz Joseph Technical Manual then? Because it looks like that style.
Yes, it is. It's actually going to be in the new technical manual being done up by Cal Schnatz. He put these together for us for this episode. So
cool. Any reason why they're blue? I have a little theory I just thought of, but is there any universe reason?
I'm sure there is. He didn't give me the full specs on them. I don't know offhand, but I'm sure there's different reasons. What's your thoughts?
Oh, maybe the warp coils, because there is some link probably to coils and Bassards or whatever. I mean, I know it's intake. Maybe the intake is different with different coils. Maybe they're lesser life coils because they're prototype / civilian, whereas you need the more heavy duty coils for the longer range Federation ships. I don't know.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and the blue is just a linking of the power flow, the plasma. That's how plasma needs to be in it.
Or they're just closer to home, so they don't have to worry about collecting extra matter as per se. They're used for experimental purposes close to home, and civilian ships are all within a system or something, so they can be easily rescued. They don't
That's a good one. That's a good one. Anyway, though,
let's move on to the next picture. And this is, of course, the awesome view screen window thing.
And I've got to say, when I first looked at the picture, I was wondering where the hell is the USS, but the USS Franklin is just underneath the window. And it's an odd placement because it means that if you stand next to the window, it's like, oh, look, there's the name of my ship.
It's so small, this ship. I think it looks like It almost seems like it's smaller than a Defiant.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
I
the
don't
hull
even.
is, I think, obviously within the cells, it probably pushes it longer, but not in actual mass.
Mhm.
Yeah, the window is yeah.
If that was gone, if that was just sloped down and it had more of like a
Yep.
noticeable TOS bridge module on the top, I'd be happier. I mean, looking at the rim of the saucer there, you see one row of windows, so that would assume one deck.
Mhm.
So you got the bridge, then another deck, and then maybe another deck under that. 3, 4 decks at most. I see the ship being.
Yeah.
If not, it's another JJ size conundrum thing. Because if this is a bigger ship, they really screwed up on the scaling.
Well, that's a very, very good point, because now, if you consider this again, there's the CG what they want, and there's based on the physical attributes. So we see the JJ prize is bigger because we see the enormous shuttle base. It doesn't matter what they say about, oh, it's this small, whatever. So if the ship we see side by side with the JJ prize, maybe whatever, then, well, do you take it as the windows are the same size based on the JJ's apparent size, or based on its new size with the scaling down? So it's one of those, and if they do see them side by side, and this is given a distinct scale, that finally give the definitive size for the JJ prize, and just maybe ignore. Because if they just ignore the shuttle bay, pretty much they've got it. They've got it fine. So this might be their step towards setting actual universal scale for their ships, maybe, if you see it together.
Hopefully, this movie's supposed to correct a lot of problems.
Okay, cool.
And kind of
consistency, yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that's what they're doing. But this ship just seems so off size wise to me. I just don't.
Well,
it's not Lochner class or size for sure.
Well, you've got to think form follows function. So it's a small craft. We know the size of the bridge, and the bridge is larger in the JJ verse, so it does offset it slightly. Like, that view screen is far, far larger than any view screen for any prime ship. So you've straight away
even bigger than the D. It's longer than the D.
Far, far bigger. Screen. Absolutely. So that's probably what, double the size of a Connie bridge. I mean, in raw scale, easily. So you've already got. It's not small, but I mean, I would say 10, 20 people. You're looking at, unless I guess you have duty shifts, maybe 30, 40, maybe. It hasn't got any, holodecks, which it hasn't got. It hasn't got any strong amenities. It's clearly not. Well, we'll go back to well armed, but it's probably just a scout ship or a perimeter vessel, or a vessel for a planet, just to defend it. It's not an exploration vessel, because form follows function. It hasn't got the necessary elements for deep space exploration. Although while that might not be the JJ versus Prime mission because of the new tensions and whatever, I can't see the ship being any more than a scout. Honestly,
it could even be with that configuration and the fact that people have said it looks like something separated from it. It could be a tug of some sort that something attaches to the back of it, and you can tow it, or who knows? I mean, it could be any number of things.
Yeah.
So right now it's all speculation, but it's good speculation. I'm glad we have something to talk about that actually is. I don't hate.
Well, when I saw the patch and the whole speculation about that, I assumed it'd be a Miranda style. Not for the sense of stealing, but because that's the most comfortable other, motion picture-y design. So I'm glad to see they went for something a bit different. Although, this is a good time to talk about, what do you think that hull plating is? It looks like, a wrench, sort of 2 wrenches on its side along the entire thing. I mean, that is bizarre. And it's also going up. So, if you think about decks, I mean, why is there suddenly a raised bit, which then goes down again? I mean, is that for bigger ceilings? Is that to fit 2 decks? I mean, why is there just this
I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of experimental weapons platform. These rise up and have a blossom that just shoots direct. I don't know. I mean, it could be a test bed for a new weapon. It could be just really bad texturing.
Well, that could be. Yeah. Well, it's very deliberate. I mean, it's clearly not. That must have been a choice. What if that is the first phaser strip? Very early. Maybe it just energizes in between, and then it can fire from one of those holes in between. It can fire a pulse laser.
That's interesting, but then again, that would be based on technology from TNG era, which I know Nero ship came back, but this is supposed to be an earlier ship, so I don't know about that.
Well, yes, but you know that the idea is that they scanned it somehow. They got the scans home somehow. Good scans, not shuttle scans. Proper scans, and they've been obviously pushing weapons technology further and further and further. So I'm happy to believe that Well, because Andrew and Rick both said the C is the first one with phases, so that's about 80 years. I mean, I can sort of buy this. This is the ultra rudimentary version. Let's just, rather than phaser turrets, let's just have a phaser ring with mini emitters, maybe. I mean,
so this is just a flying phaser platform then. If the size of the ship is,
yeah, sure. I don't know. I'd be larger bet it's just armor. That'd be my main bet. Some sort of reinforcement in the structural, but it's probably just aesthetics. They probably just wanted something there, honestly, to make it look, to think, because TOS its sleekness is the style. So if you pull away from that and add more things to the hull, it feels more bulky and you can say older. So that's probably a cue they've gone for, but I don't think it has any real design point.
Mm-hmm.
That's my feel.
Well, we've talked about size and that window, so let's move into the interior. Let's go to the next picture.
Okay.
And this shows Spock's wearing a USS Franklin jacket. If you zoom in on the patch there, it does say Franklin.
Now, call it now. Do you think that's him as assigned to the Franklin, or him who's just nicked a jacket off someone, because he's cold?
I assume he just probably grabbed the jacket. I mean, maybe he got beamed up, because you see him get beamed up from with McCoy there. Maybe he got rescued and was, I don't know, needed
a new duty uniform. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I can buy that, because I don't think he'd be assigned him as a very the guy that invented the Kobayashi Maru assigned to this little. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But I gotta say, the consoles here look very Star Trek 6-ish. They're too advanced for TOS.
That's the left-hand side. The right-hand side is a weird color palette, but the left-hand side, I would absolutely agree. Those are spot-on colors. The whole thing, really. Yeah.
Even the design, that kind of angled design.
Yeah.
Very, very movie-era LCARs.
Now, just conceptually, would you be okay for them to push in those sorts of technological respects if they turned the JJ LCAR system and pushed it into the motion picture with the same color, Star Trek 6, that sort of color scheme, to show progression? Would you be okay for them to skip that amount of time and just chalk it up to more advanced tech because they've pushed that?
Yeah, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that too.
I like those displays; those are my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And those in this picture look very good. So,
yeah. Although this is strange. If this is a sign of the Franklin's rooms, now that's quite a lot of control paneling. So you could assume it's the bridge or some other. Well, there's not many rooms, bridge or engine room. Then you haven't got smooth walls. You've got paneling on the walls, and it's not like the NX-01 where it's all neatly linear and lined up. This is paneling above paneling, which is probably there to show again an older style. So it definitely doesn't feel like the most advanced ship in the fleet.
No. Let's move on to the next picture, because I think you just mentioned engineering. We see Scotty here, and we got different kinds of paneling, which seem, or not paneling, but
control
consoles.
Interface.
Yeah, and it looks more like this would be nitty-gritty kind of down in engineering.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the left there, it looks like I see glass and a reflection of Chekhov.
Oh, yes. Yep, nice, cool.
So I don't know exactly what's going on in this picture.
And also, it looks rusty.
Yes, it does look like a very dirtier old ship.
Which Star Trek ships don't get rusty. This is not a design cue that really fits with the Trek. Yeah. Like, you build them better than that. Yeah. If you're building spaceships to get rusty with materials that you know are going to get rusty in however many years, you're building them wrong, guys. Stop welding in Iowa, please. Build in space. No rust.
Yes, it's the condensation of moisture on the planet Earth that causes the ships to rust because they're built there. Build them in space, and you're good.
Although I've got to say, just English Doctor Who, the paneling on the middle of the main panel in the middle of the screen is clear for a Dalek to put his sucker on. Clearly, I mean.
Oh, obviously, yeah, big R2D2.
Yeah, well, that's for the lower bit. Yeah, cool. On to the next picture, we've got Uhura again in a control interface. I mean, the trailer is very fragmented, but we see some glimpses of the rooms, and I'm not sure what to think of this. It's probably the bridge, probably, but I don't know.
Yeah. On the right there, you see some of the circular displays, which are, again, reminiscent of the movie era LCARs with those circular things. behind her looks like a map of some sort, and it's in a green color, which I like. I don't know if it's very Starfleet-ish. It's not. It doesn't have the contrast of the blue and the green like most Starfleet ships would.
Yeah.
If you're doing the movie era palette, but I have no real complaints with this. It just doesn't look Starfleet to me at first glance. I would say this is an alien ship if I had to guess just with this picture. I would not say Starfleet at all.
Okay. Although we can see, I think there is Earth writing underneath the middle console.
Yeah, but it could be a civilian ship, though, right?
Well, I was about to say, yeah, it could be civilian, but although it definitely feels like an evolution from the Kelvin because of the color palette. I mean, it is these metal-y colors, whereas everything TOS is the white, clean. So clearly they're going that line, which is fine. But it certainly doesn't look advanced, which is interesting. Doesn't look advanced. Anyway.
No. All right, so we're back to the first picture, and I gotta say, overall impression, first glance, I was very happy. I was like, finally, something that looks TOS, but not TOS. It's a reimagined TOS, which I like. That's what I wanted you to do in the first place. Not totally barf all over my favorite ship. But
well, I think that speaks to, you keep the engines right, you keep the sorter right, and we can deal with the odd detailing on the hull. Like that sort of thing that's the quirk, as long as you keep the good pieces.
That's the captain quirk.
Although one thing I want to bring up that I thought halfway, weapons. We know the JJ style weapons because Axon use them as well, and it really highlights them. They've got ports that pop up and cannons fly out. And I'm looking at this and I can't see any.
Well, that being said, there are like raised parts.
There are.
In sets of 2, which could be weapons, but I have a feeling they're more like formation lights.
Yeah, I would agree.
But then again, they're the same size as the ones that are on the top of the nacelles, which would make sense to be weapons because you need something, probably.
I think they're longer, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, they are longer, but roughly the same size. So
I'm just it would also give a sense of scale to know how big those weapon emplacements were. Well, I do kind of like, now we're looking at the detailing on the back, how there is this arching V shape on either side of the bridge. It is difficult to see with the shadow.
Yeah, that's the thing too. We only got one view of the ship. We don't know what it looks like from the bottom, the top.
The impulse engines.
Yeah, and those speaking of engines, those warp nacelles look very short and stubby, but the way they taper, it makes them perspective-wise look longer.
Yes.
So I think it's a very short engine, much like we saw in that engine diagram we had. There's shorter experimental engines as well. So this could be an experimental craft.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's a very old rust bucket, older design with shorter design for less space travel.
Maybe it's an old experimental design that they were working towards the original Constitution class from TOS.
Perfect.
But then the Narada came through and they decided to go in a whole new direction, scrapped the Constitution program, and went with the new Enterprise.
Well, I would say we know this is post Kelvin just because of the window, but I mean, I know what you mean.
Well, not necessarily. Could be that all Federation ships since the beginning of time
and
say
that.
Had that window.
But it's our universe. So don't start saying that, Stuart. We don't like windows.
I know we don't, but this could be that. Just that. This could have been the design lineage going up to a Constitution class from TOS that we love, and then something happened and they went a totally different direction.
I like that. That's interesting. Or actually, if you consider, if you think of this engine, these engine compartments as longer than, prospectively, take as perspective. If you added a bar in between the two nacelle struts, it'd be the NX-01. Basically, which is actually an interesting design cue because that would kind of say that maybe this is the evolution of the NX-01. You take out the secondary thing. Maybe there is, because we can't see. Maybe there is a secondary hull, a small circular piece underneath, smaller, more compact. Maybe integrates perfectly with a deflector with the impulse. I mean.
Or it could be that there was a secondary hull attached and that it has separated somehow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I absolutely have to go
and
for that.
And the ship has just been floating in space for however long.
But wouldn't that be... And we know it wasn't based on that, but wouldn't it be interesting if this was the evolution of the NX refit? This is a different version. This is the... If there is a secondary hull, this is like the JJ version. Because, again, you're pushing into that sort of style as well. Yeah. Like, speaking of, why do you think there's a orange paint stripe?
I don't know. It's not unheard of to have striping on training vessels,
Right.
like in
Okay.
today's Navy,
I like that. I like that.
or even experimental vessels. So it could harken back to the experimental thing,
Mm-hmm.
or a smaller training vessel. Who knows?
Yeah, I can go with that completely. Yeah. Okay. I buy that. And then what do you think of all this? I mean, the connection point to the nacelle is odd.
It is. Yes.
It almost feels as if it, goes down and up and it doesn't rotate, but it almost pivots slightly. But what do you make of those lines? Because again, if you're thinking along the lines that we would think as designers of Federation starships, what function do they provide?
Well, if you look at the inboard profile of that nacelle, it's got no chiller grills or
Yeah.
any of that kind of structure. So perhaps those are the chiller grills on this engine type.
So very open to space, very open to that air. Yeah.
To air, to
Well,
vacuum. I know what you mean. Yeah,
but I do like the idea of chiller grills. That makes sense. I'm almost really now wanting to see a secondary hull underneath this. I think that would give it an even more different vibe because we've never seen that very compact. It's basically an X refit, but I can dig that. I don't think they're going to have that. But that could be really interesting. And
I'm excited. I put it this way: I'm excited for the movie now because of this. I want to see more of this.
Well, especially since he's got the patch, so we know it's going to have an actual. There is some genuine. It's not in there as a cameo. We know. Well, we think that the ship they're on is the Franklin, so there is going to be quite a bit of that. So I'm interested to see. Do you think that the impulse engines are on those tapering side strut things that come off the bridge? Do you think those are the two impulse engines, or do you think it's underneath the bridge to the back?
I think there's probably behind the bridge.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. That's where I would put them, but this is JJ verse, so who knows?
They can hear the hum of the engines at the back wall of the bridge. It's that close.
Yeah. No, I don't know. We need to see more.
We do.
But this was a very tantalizing taste. This wasn't just a glimpse. This was like a good picture of a ship.
Yeah, I was so happy to see when this was released because it's one of those things that I want to be able to dissect this. I want to be able to take it in because we all want these cool Federation ships to exist, and especially in a universe where they've basically reset the rules. Do some fun stuff, do some stuff that makes sense because all the same designers that exist in the TOS are all alive. Like there's no difference in people; it's just slight design changes. So it's interesting to see when they take the core pieces but make something that fits and yet is different. And I do think, like I said, if you took out the window, made it sleek, you could easily fit in the Franklin NCC. That would work better, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That said, it'll be very interesting to see the CG shots because unlike the Enterprise, where the saucer is so far away from the inside, the window, you only get a sense of the inside. For this, every single shot you're going to see the bridge crew inside doing something. Which is going to be interesting 3D mode, interesting shots with that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's going to be really fun is going back after the movie's been released and watching this episode and going, "Damn, we were stupid," or "Look how intelligent we were."
Hopefully somewhere in between.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for this look at the first glimpse of the USS Franklin,
Yes.
a new JJ verse style ship. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We were looking forward to hearing your things in the comments below. But Samuel, any thoughts?
Just let us know what you guys think because this is our opinion. I think we both like it overall, which is a good sign. It's a good sign. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments below. Let us know if you had heard the original TOS version. If you do think it's a nicking or if it's an homage, let us know what your vibe is, and let us know how excited you are for Beyond, which they might do great, they might do not, but it's a Star Trek film, and we've got a new series coming anyway. So yeah. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think, and we'll see you as we always do next time for Trekyards. Until then, guys, this is Commander Cockins
and Captain Foley.
See you next time.
Bye.